Well, I think it's probably best to start with how things went with the Capitol. And I'll go ahead and... I've got the record button going. There's not going to be fan art in this one. Nothing like that. It's just going to be me talking about how things went when I went to the Atlanta Capitol building and why I went and all that fun stuff. So, to understand that, we got to first understand HB1170, a bill that was being modified at the time in the House and then was going up to the Senate Rules Committee. And the bill, as most bills tend to be these days, got shoved in last second, and everybody just kind of had to accept that the new version of the bill was going to be voted on. So I went up there with Georgia Equality and tried to talk to representatives with varying levels of success. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the longhand, shorthand of the bill is the first half of the bill, first 86 lines of the bill, are about Narcan and making sure that people have access to Narcan. The last part of the bill is a modification on a Senate bill, HB1170, I believe, where in Georgia, we lost the ability for trans kids who needed puberty blockers. They lost access to puberty blockers. But the compromise was that trans kids that were currently on puberty blockers wouldn't have it stopped because that would be kind of fucked up. Then, the modification to the Narcan bill ended up instead being, instead of having a bill for Narcan, we have a bill with another 150 some odd lines of text stapled onto the bottom as a modification to that Senate bill. And the stapled, literally fucking glued with no reason to be there on the bottom part of the bill said that the language of the previous bill needed to be changed so that even people who were on puberty blockers would actually have that revoked. So any medical intervention that had already been done would be revoked, and people would just have that taken away from them. Now, this puts the Democrats into a really, really awkward situation where if they wanted to get a bill out now that had, the ability to get Narcan to people who needed it, now we have the Republicans basically going, all right, so we are modifying the bill so that you've got to pick between the druggies and the transes. Of course, those aren't the words that the Republicans would have been using in this particular situation. You know which ones they would be using. Insert them in your own mind if you want. That's a you thing to do. So, this put Democrats in between a rock and a hard place on the bill, and most of them would not push the bill as a result. I know this one because we talked with them. So, what I thought I was going up to the Capitol to do was to go up and be part of a general group of people where we would get time to come up and talk to the Senate as a whole, or the House as a whole, about why this bill needed to not go through the way that it was. What it ended up being instead was, and this was my first time going to the Capitol to do this, instead, I basically play the role of a lobbyist. And when you're a lobbyist, what you do at the Capitol is you have this little yellow slip of paper, and you put that in that says the senator you want to talk to, why you want to talk to them, where you're going to be, and when you want to talk to them. And so typically you put in, like, I would like it to be for 5 minutes from now, and I would like it to be outside this rope, basically. So, at the end of this, I'm going to go ahead and give the, basically, speech I had prepared for if I got called on to speak, because that's what I thought I was going to be doing. That's not what ended up happening, but I can tell you how the lobbying went during this. So, one, the Capitol building is a 4-story building with marble staircases, and my knees hurt like hell from going up and down. But two, third floor has the House on one side, Senate on the other side, and my job, essentially, and the job of many people who came from Georgia Equality, our job collectively was to heckle senators and House representatives. Now, the House representatives, there wasn't much we could do about. We focused on the Senate because after it goes through the House, it goes to the Senate Rules Committee, which is on the 4th floor. And once the bill goes to the Senate Rules Committee, they can strike it down. They can knock it out. So our goal was to basically grab a senator, talk to them, and say, hey, do you support this bill? Are you going to be okay with this bill? And if so, why? And if you're on the fence, would you like some information about this bill to show you why you probably shouldn't support it? Maybe a little bit of information. So we had a handout about the bogus guy who was supposed to be a leader in thought on trans care and was not. He was actually a person who was not allowed to practice medicine in many states now, who was not an expert for testimony. So we had a whole piece of paper on why he's the guy who founded the Republican think tank that calls itself a pediatrics organization, American Association of Pediatrics, something like that. The guy who runs that piece of shit. So we had a piece of paper that had all the information on him, and then a piece of paper that went into the talking points for why Bill bad and all that fun stuff. Something that, again, I didn't realize I was going to need, because that's not what I thought I was there for. But, so the first senator that I wanted to try to talk to was my senator, the one for my district, Anna Devarte. But he wasn't speaking to any of his constituents at all. So that didn't happen. That feels great being represented that way. So then the next person that I was supposed to talk to instead of Anna Devarte was Senator Randy Robertson, I believe was his name. And I was told, I picked Republican senators. I picked the people who I figured were going to be the ones who were assholes. And so when the person who was giving me my assignment was like, you could pick this guy, he might listen. You could pick this guy, he's kind of an asshole. He's kind of confrontational. I'm like, I will take the confrontational one. I'm going to take the one who's going to be a dick so that other people don't have to take him. Somebody else already took him as well, though, so there were going to be more people talking to him. I didn't know about that until an incident happened at the Capitol. So imagine there's this long line of rope, and lobbyists are standing at each part of the line of rope. On the left-hand side, there were a couple of people from Georgia Equality, and then on the right-hand side, there was me. Senate chamber doors here, and Senator Robertson comes out. I try to get his attention. I fail to, because he decides he's going to start on the left-hand side of the line and work his way down. Anybody who wants to talk to him, he'll work his way down. Which kind of, sort of works, except that every, 30 minutes, all the senators get called back into the building to do votes. So they can only do that for, a couple minutes at a time. But anyway. So I was watching him talk to one of the other people from Georgia Equality, and they brought up their child to him and why it's kind of important for them to have access to medication. Whether or not you have a trans kid, the government basically sweeping in and saying, hey, you're not allowed to make an informed medical decision about your child. We get to make that medical decision about your child, is kind of an asshole move. And the strategy was to talk to each of these senators and appeal to their republicanism, appeal to the small government side of their psyche. Like, hey, why are you okay with government overreach? Why are you okay with this happening? And then he got in a verbal altercation with the mother, who was from Georgia Equality, and talking with him. He got very, very, very angry. So he basically talked to two constituents.
Hey, Suris. Did you had a productive day at the Capitol?
No, I didn't. I'm talking about that. He got angry at her for talking about her kid. And then he stormed off. Went right past me, didn't go into the main Senate chamber door. There's a second door that you can go into. He stormed past every single constituent who tried to get his attention and went right into that door. And I was like, bruh, okay, sure. I guess that your answer to that Georgia bill is going to be you're just upset. You're just angry. That's fine, I guess. Sure, why not? So, the next person that I tried to... so, I figured I might get another chance to talk with him. So I waited around a little bit. And during this time, I listened into other people who were having...
I am so annoyed I missed the whole story because I got like 4 ads back to back I had to sub.
I'm going to turn Blizzy off during this. I'm going to have to. I appreciate the resubscription, Kazooie. But Jeebus balls. But... So when Randy Robertson decided to go do his thing, I decided to listen into other conversations that were happening with other Georgia reps. So I got to overhear one of our guys, or one of our girls, talking to Senator Ed Seltzer. And that conversation, I caught a little bit of it, watched a parent get very angry with him for very good reason, but basically was listening to him talk a lot about puberty blockers, never citing a study, never saying anything, just talking about irreversible changes that he could not name. Just basically talking about stuff that he could not quantify the entire time about puberty blockers. Just stuff that you would hear from Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, you know, the usuals, but not anything backed by any credible science. It's wonderful that we have politicians that don't have to actually listen to credible science when they're talking out their ass about removing rights away from American citizens. It's just great. So Ed Seltzer's talking at his ass to, you know, one of the GA equality people, and luckily he was there long enough that apparently his opinion got changed closer to an on the fence as opposed to an outright no, we need to not let the puberty blockers be a thing ever, despite overwhelming evidence that they're fine, and us using them on cis kids with cancer for early onset breast cancer and other puberty related issues that might happen. Despite all that evidence, no, we're not going to allow the trans kids to have it, because that's the funny thing about HB1170 is that it specifically denied trans kids access to the care. Cis kids are fine, they get access to it, but if you're trans, fuck you, I guess. So then my next target that I was given, because I had already tried talking to my asshole, was another asshole, and that was Senator Bill Cowsert. Now, Cowsert is the, like, quintessential Georgia Republican. Every single thing you can say about a Georgia Republican when it comes to, like, pro-life, sponsored by the NRA, everything like that, that's him. That is him to a T. Like, from top to bottom, that is exactly the type of person that he is. Because every single time I was told to talk to a person, I spent my time that I wasn't talking with them researching them so I knew how I was going to talk with them. Boy, howdy, it would have been great if I could have talked to any of these senators today. Not today, yesterday. So, Bill Cowsert never comes out when I send in my summons, basically. He just doesn't. So, I get hungry. I go downstairs. I grab a snack from the snack machine. I find out that apparently they forgot to put barcodes on the turkey sandwiches that day, so I wasn't able to scan the turkey sandwiches. I got to get a bag of cookies out of the vending machine, and that was my lunch. Not a very healthy lunch, and not enough to keep me going, which didn't help when I got up and then sat down, well, not sat down, but stood next to a person who I recognized, a person who I was a correspondent with for GA Equality. And I was talking with them while waiting for something to happen. I didn't know it was going to happen. And I got a stroke of luck. Turns out that the Senate broke, and every single senator that was part of the Rules Committee had to go up to floor 4, so they left. Which meant I got to grab Bill Cowsert on his way out. So instead of him coming out to me the way protocol says they're supposed to do, the way their own rules say they're supposed to do, I had to be kind of a dick and confront him as he was leaving to go do something else. Just grab him in the in-between. So I grab Cowsert in the in-between and start talking to him about it, and we get into the elevator, And I get to have this conversation with him in the elevator on the way to the Rules Committee floor while we are surrounded by a whole bunch of Republican senators, which is not a comfortable conversation to have and not a comfortable way to have it. It feels very claustrophobic in those elevators. They're not big. But, so I ask him about the bill, and he says he doesn't know the bill by number. He doesn't know most bills by number anymore. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I understand that. So I went, okay, it's the Narcon bill that's in the House that's going to go to your Rules Committee, and the Narcan bill has stapled on the bottom of it a bit about puberty blockers. And he goes, oh, I think I might have heard of that. And then the elevator opens, and as we're walking, instead of addressing anything any further, he goes, well, it's not part of any committee I'm a part of, so bye, and then just leaves into the Rules Committee room. And I'm just like, really? Really? Okay, cool. I also love how I disconnected my Stream Deck really quick when I did that. So I got to hear that when that happened. I'm just like, dude, you can't just fucking play stupid about this. You can't just do that. But I guess you can. I guess you can. So Kauser gets into the Rules Committee. And that basically tells me, okay, my day's probably done. I can either run and talk to the House of Representatives on the 1 hour of sleep I came to the Capitol with and the no food that I'm sitting at the Capitol with. I could do that, but we already knew that the bill was going to be going through the House. So focusing on the House wasn't going to do anything. The bill is probably going to be voted on Monday by the Senate Rules Committee. No real way to avoid that. So that was my time at the Capitol. I then went over to Jeff Graham, the person in charge, or one of the people in charge of GA Equality, said like, hey, I am heading out. I've done what I can. I've tried to talk to 3 of my senators. 2 of them were dick butts. The last one was a different flavor of dick butt. Here's my findings on the flavor of dick butt that he is. And that's all I'm going to be doing for the day. I have to try to make it home before Atlanta traffic becomes Atlanta traffic. So, it's given me a few perspectives. One, I have a new perspective on lobbying. Now that I've gone to the Capitol and done lobbying, I think everybody who has the, blanket opinion that lobbying should be banned is wrong. Because I realize through several of the other lobbyists that I talked to that day and my time attempting to talk to senators, it's not just big businesses, asterisks, who have lobbyists there talking to politicians and being in their ear. It's everyone. It's every person who has a type of advocacy they want to do. You go to the Capitol, you can go, no ifs, ands, or buts, submit a paper and talk to your representative. I already knew this was a thing you could do going to their offices, because a lot of that stuff is public knowledge, but you literally can just go there and try to talk to them. If you are lucky, then you will get a chance to talk to them, and you might get a chance to change their mind. And since you don't have a lot of time, you want to go there with a printout of your talking points. That way you can go, hey, if you don't have time to talk to me, because you've got a billion other things to do, could you please take this? Could you please read it and please consider the proposal that I have in here? And that's an option that you have. That's what GA Equality provided to us, thank God, because it was my first time going and lobbying. So I had no idea, everything that went into it. So my perspective is now, no, don't ban lobbying, but certainly regulate it better. Certainly regulate the money that is involved in lobbying. But there's plenty of advocacy organizations. Also, hi, Vice Rhino. Thank you so much for the raid. But there's plenty of advocacy organizations that engage in lobbying that need to be able to, so that you can try to hit some of those bills at the pass. I watched a couple of the representatives and a couple of the senators come and talk to Jeff Graham, and say like, hey, we're trying to unstaple the Narcon part of HB1170 and the puberty blockers part of HB1170, because they have no business being together. So I watched a little bit of budging happen very, very slowly, and with quite a lot of fighting from damn 30, 40, 50 people. I don't know how many reps we had there, but we had a lot. So like I said, my perspective on lobbying has changed a decent bit because I've now done it there. The blanket ban, dumb idea. Any advocacy that needs to happen at the Capitol, you are able to just go and do it. That's a thing that you have a chance to do. But my other perspective is that it is putting in 8 hours of time often for 30 seconds of payoff. And in the case like a bill like this, the 30 seconds of payoff is sometimes the only thing you can hope for. Like, for instance, if I were to just do a video on HB1170, it would probably come out late, right? Editing and everything else getting in the way, it would probably come out late. By the time y'all found out about it, there would be no time to lobby. And it would only be people in my local area that would be able to even try to intercept it in the first place because it's a bill local to the Atlanta region. So just putting the information out there in this particular case wouldn't have been enough. But going there didn't accomplish a lot, and it feels like being stuck between a rock and a hard place. And there's not really a whole lot you can do about that. The most you can do is your best. But since I did feel like this was what I originally thought, like I said, was that I was going to be part of a swelling of people who would have a chance to speak en masse to the senators in a, get up and speak at the podium type of deal for a bit. One of many, but at least one of. I figured, hey, why don't I go ahead and use my one skill I have, which is being obnoxious on the internet and talking. Why don't I go ahead and use that for some good? So, me and Saki workshopped a speech that I thought I would be able to say. That didn't happen, so I'm going to go ahead and do it here instead, since it needs to go somewhere, and I honestly think these words are important to some, especially with what I'm going to be talking about here in a bit. But, and apologies, I am going to be reading it from the script, because it is a workshop script that was timed to 2 minutes 55 seconds, because I was told, hey, you'll get 3 minutes max if you get a chance to speak at all. So I timed it and had it happen, or had it ready. But here we go. Hello to all attending. My name is Chris, and some of you might know me as Suris, but I've got some thoughts. A recent study in the JAMA Journal of Pediatrics was conducted in order to find out exactly how many trans kids detransition after puberty blockers. Out of almost 600 kids, a shocking 5% chose to re-identify with their birth sex. Now, that might sound high, but remember, this Georgia bill is about revocation of medical care to trans kids. So what did that study find for people who actually sought medical care? Two kids. 2 kids chose to re-identify with their sex birth. 2 kids out of almost 600. This rate of detransition is so alarmingly low, and yet we want to put politicians in the way of medical care. Stuffy suit and tie morons, paid for by tax dollars, who think that they're better parents for their kids than the actual parents themselves. When parents have access to relevant research, they can make informed decisions for their children. That's the ideal, right? Instead, some idiots paid for by Washington want to hammer home that they should have more authority than the parents when it comes to raising their children. Instead of allowing parents to have the best set of options at their fingertips, they want to strip away those options until only the ones that these unqualified stuffy aristocrats approve of remain. Funny thing, we hear a lot about lack of long-term data, but the International Journal of Pediatric Endocrinology has been doing research into exactly that. Turns out the mental health outcomes of trans youth improve in 2 environments. 1, the environment where they're allowed to explore themselves for themselves, with parental supervision and guidance. And 2, strangely, a supportive environment where they are not judged or suppressed in doing so. Isn't that strange? Kids thrive when they're supported? It's a strange concept, but it must be new to some of the suits here. Now, I'm sure all of you here are responsible parents, and y'all want the best for your kids. I can respect that. My parents wanted the same for me. I wholly get it. But there's another study published in the Journal of Adolescent Health that surveyed over 9,000 trans youth to young adults, ages 13 to 24. Guess what they found? They found that young people receiving gender-affirming hormone therapy reported a lower likelihood of depression and considering suicide compared to those who wanted to but did not receive hormone therapy. For the ones under 18, receiving hormone therapy led to a 40% lower chance of depression and suicide attempts. We've got some shocking data on our hands. 82% of trans people consider suicide. 40% try. That's from the study of suicidality in transgender youth. The main risk factors? Lack of family support. That's what made a unique, statistically significant contribution to suicide attempts. Now imagine being one of the parents in this study. Imagine that kind of shame. A few kids die and it's a tragedy, but unfortunately, if enough trans kids die, it's just another statistic. At least to the elites here who think they should have more of a say in the lives of the kids that they will never meet. But you know who has met those kids? Their doctors. Their parents. Their friends. The people they confided in. None of you, though. Certainly not any one of you. Thank you for your time. That is what I had prepared in case I was ever given a microphone at any point in time. The idea was to try to marry a couple of concepts. Concept one, somebody scathing and pissed. Concept two, cited studies, named. And concept three, the idea that government overreach over parenting is wrong. And it should feel wrong. That was the goal. Whether or not I accomplished that, probably up to y'all in the comment section below. But I didn't get a chance to put it where I wanted. So it goes here. Zand says, thank you for taking the time to petition your local representatives. It may not seem too impactful, but it's super important. The more voices they hear, they better. Keep on fighting the good fight. A former union shop steward. Well, thank you. That said, that was my experience at the Capitol. I'm probably going to end up doing it again. Because this shit's going to keep happening. Whether I do it with GA Equality or on my own, who knows? But we'll see. Insert end of video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep the show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Nixie-chan, the Oberon team, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.